And welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. We will be discussing marketing and the eCTD. Disclosure, this meeting is being recorded, and we'll be putting it up on our website at the end of the meeting. If you are uncomfortable sharing your questions or potentially even your name and, of course, the answers, please connect now, and we will send you an email when the presentation is up on our website, and you can view it then. It is Josh Boutwell, and I founded Aquila Solutions in 2010. Since then, we've been helping large numbers of clients with the missions, as well as keeping up to date with all the recent changes to standard and to submit to DA and to other regions. So this is a quick overview of today's topics. We're going to give you a very brief overview of what is eCTD. This meeting is really more geared towards the people in submitting promotional materials who may not have a good understanding what eCTD is at this point. Talk about how how to integrate your marketing materials to the new standard, any required information for seeing the promotional materials. A couple of examples of sequences that have been that would have successfully been submitted had they been real. We'll talk about a few of the challenges, and at the end there will be time for questions, and then, of course, our next Lunch and Learn. So eCTD. It is the electronic version of the common technical document. Again, this is a very generic term. It really means anything that is a small molecule or a biologic. And it's a standard that is internationally agreed upon. This has a lot of real added function, added use to sponsors, because now you don't have to rewrite all your applications for every region you go into. And on top of that, everyone knows where things are, so it's very easy to tell people where you put things. The electronic version is a predefined naming scheme for files, for folders, and they're all linked together with XML. Most of the information is provided in PDF files. Now, one thing to note is that promotional materials, because the nature of the material, will have a lot more variety in the file types, but they're still linked together using the same standard. This is a classic pyramid model of the CD. It is five modules. Module 1 is completely defined by the region you are going into, in this case, the FDA. Another region has any input on what the FDA requires or how it's presented. Module 2 through 5 are all the international standards. Module 2 are summary documents. Module 3 is quality. 4 is non-clinical study reports, and 5 are anything relating to your clinical studies. Of course, these things can get very large and very complicated. And fortunately for us, with this dealing with promotional materials, you only worry about Module 1. Essentially exclusively Module 1 submissions. With the possibility, unlikely, but the possibility that you may end up submitting some reference articles in modules 3, 4, and 5 would be unusual, but theoretically possible. But that's about it. So we're really just going to concentrate on the marketing materials section of the module, the new Module 1 for the FDA. So this is a new thing. Until July of this year, you couldn't submit marketing materials through the eCTD. The OEDP and APLB were not equipped for it. And on top of that, the promotional materials are structured so differently, they have to be structured so differently than most other drug application materials that it was very difficult to integrate the new submissions, the new data for promotional materials into the eCTD structure. In order to do that, and several other things, a new Module 1 DP was released. A DP is what defines your module, your XML, what defines how it's structured, what are valid values, where everything goes. That's what a DTD is. And a new one was released about a little bit over a year ago and became accepted to the FDA July 2015. To promotional materials, it adds a whole lot more, and it's really a stepping stone to the next version of the eCTD when that eventually comes out. This is a new standard for Module 1, and is a fairly radical change to eCTD. So if you're familiar with eCTD and you want to submit promotional materials, understand that it's going to be different than what you've experienced in the past. It's just like going from paper to electronic. If to submit marketing materials electronically, you have to convert to this new version and going back. You go back to the old way of doing it, and but only submit your marketing materials with this. It's all nothing. That said, you don't have to convert yet. The conversion, there will be at least 2 years before FDA requires that you convert to the new Module 1 standard. Meantime, you should seriously consider it, just because that will prepare you for the requirement. Now, when you're thinking about doing this conversion, you have to make sure that your regulatory group understands the requirements of the new standard. I have a talk that is on this new Module 1 that they can look through, or there are a variety of resources. It is not really a straightforward change. You also need to train your marketing team to be able to use the eCTD mission. This is going to be something of a change in how they submit their materials. So it's good to train people ahead of time. Again, remember, you don't have to do it now. So what are some of the required information for these submissions? It's very similar to what's already required. You, of course, need a form, your 2253. You need a correspondence letter. Now, one thing to note that this correspondence letter is not a cover letter. You submit a cover letter with these submissions. Correspondence letter is solely in the marketing section, and it describes what material is being submitted. Of course, need your clean copy and an annotated copy of your material, current PI, and any other required labeling, so patient instructions, things like that, and any additional supporting information for your product, for your materials. Now, in addition to the information you had to submit already, there's some new information. There's what's called metadata. Metadata is information that is encoded into the backbone of the eCTD, and it allows computers to sort your information quickly and organize it so that it can be reviewed well. And you'll need to determine a marketing contact person. This is name, email address, phone number of the person that the FDA, if the FDA has any questions on your marketing materials, submit in this sequence. Should they call? With technical contact, this would be whoever had created your eCTD in the first place. They would be the ones answering the questions on if there are any submission questions that have been asked. A submission description. This is essentially a free text field to give an overall description of your submission, and it's not necessarily related to. It's not just a promotional thing. This is required for all, or recommended for all submission types. Then you have a sequence number. Paper submissions, anytime you submit something electronically, it must be assigned a 4-digit sequence number. This means that there are exactly 10,000 possible submissions to an application. And this is one of the issues that the FDA was wrestling with prior to accepting marketing materials, because some sponsors create a huge number of pieces they would need to submit through their application. FDA was concerned about running out of sequence numbers in the application. That was resolved by allowing multiple pieces to be submitted at one time, and they did an assessment and decided it would be very unlikely anyone would use up their sequence numbers in the lifespan of a product. So the structure of your promotional materials. This is great from the new Module 1 guidance. And you see there's promotional materials goes into section 1.15. So section 15 of Module 1. Inside these brackets is metadata. In the promotional material audience type, there are two types. There's professional and there is patient. So you decide whether your product is targeting professionals or the consumer, and specify it here. And then you have all these different fields for different types of information. Then same thing down here for the different supporting materials. There are some rules. Submit anything else with promotional materials. Unlike standard submissions, you can theoretically combine multiple different activities in one sequence. You cannot do that with promotional materials. It will not be directed to the correct location at FDA if you do that. So if you just submit a promotional piece and need to submit just a then you need to submit those separately. So you don't want to submit a pamphlet and a web page in the same submission. There are two different types. They need to go in different submissions so that it can be the content is clear. There's a very distinct separation between the two types. You need to submit professional and consumer materials separately. So if you can't combine materials that are submitted to professionals and submitted, and then in the same submission have materials that are also submitted to consumers. Now, there may be rare situations where a piece is intended for both professional and consumers. It is assigned to the consumer rather than to both, and you should explain this in your correspondence. Now, next point is a big issue. It should be descriptive enough to allow for review. What is that you should provide enough information, enough description so the FDA can look at your piece electronically and truly understand how it acts, what it is, how people interact with it, and if it's a physical piece, if it's some conference piece that's a puzzle, or say a fridge magnet that has two images depending on the angle, things like that. One of the biggest issues would be a web page. Web pages nowadays are very interactive, and they need to be really useful. But you show that to your reviewer. Now, to do that is to record the screen of someone using your website, how it actually functions. There's lots of different ways to do that, but it will take some significant thought to put it together correctly. Then you omit any section that is not needed. So there's a list of 11 sections here. Only submitting a request for advisory comment on launch materials. Don't submit the rest of this. Examples of marketing sequences and are taken directly from the guidance. I looked at them and they seemed like really good examples. In case we have multiple pieces in one submission. So this is you can see at the top, this is a professional piece. All pieces are for professionals. And you have first your correspondence. This is your letter to explain the pieces. Your material, so under materials, you have your clean version, and this is a sales aid. You have a clean version. This here will be the title. This is a technical term. Essentially, it's what you see when you open up your backbone. The annotated version. Your PI, the annotated PI to sales aid. In this case, you have a reference. Notice the two pieces have two sections labeled 1.15.2.1. You have as many of these sections as you want. So each one is internally consistent. So in this case, sales aid, so that would be some sort of demo for a conference, and maybe a print ad, perhaps going into the conference's flyer or something like that going into the handout at the conference. You have your clean version, your annotated version, your PI, and any supporting information. In this case, it's a reference. So to look at this is these should be treated independently, and this should be attached to each piece. So when this is reviewed, it will be reviewed as this material plus this letter, and this material plus this letter. Here's an example of a website. Again, as you can see, this is a professional piece. It's a promotional. It's referenced in your in the 2253, and this is you're submitting a website. The clean version, and this will be the initial submission, so there aren't any changes. And one thing websites is, with eCTD in general, you need one leaf per file. So website is 10 pages. You have to have 10 files there to be able to submit it. And then we have a print ad related to the website. Now, some of the challenges. They're very new. The A did a pilot project earlier this year. I understand it was fairly successful, but honestly, it's only been available for a month. Keep that in mind. The FDA some time to work through the process. Don't necessarily rush into it unless you have reason to. You never want to be the first person to upgrade, essentially. There's another thing to consider. There is a file size limit of 100 megabytes. You're unlikely to hit that unless you're submitting videos. And videos at that. Basic commercials won't do anything a documentary might. Then finally, just want to reiterate this. Electronic copies of materials can be very difficult to represent, and you should spend a lot of time thinking about what you need to do in order to present this material in a way that the FDA can understand, in a way that will make sense to them when they are looking at it, and that they can really understand what you're trying to do with this piece. Now, of course, we can help. We've done some of these, the new Module 1s, and we also provide training and conversion support, and if you are looking to in-source, we provide RegOps support as well. At this time, are there any questions? Any questions, please feel free to email me at any time, or you can call us, and I'd be happy to assist you in any way I can. Our next Lunch and Learn, which will be held on September 11th in weeks, we will be discussing eCopy. This is the electronic submissions for devices. I'm providing basically an explanation of what eCopy is and how you go about creating one. It will be 1 p.m. for about half an hour, 15 minutes of training and 15 minutes of Q&A. Ending, and have a great weekend.